Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a really fun book idea. I basically am doing blind date with a book, but it's on my own bookshelf because I feel like I have so many unread books that I've just collected because I just either want to read them or heard good things about them, or if you saw my previous video, I really like the cover, for example, even though I'm still doing that most of the time, but I still have so many that I've spent money on that I've owned that I need to read. So I'm gonna do blind date with a book, and if you can see in my little corner over there, I already wrapped them. So I basically went through all of my bookshelves and my books, and I picked 6 books that I need to read expeditiously. Let me grab them. I wrapped them in brown paper so I wouldn't know which book is which, and I'm basically just going to use, I'm just going to use a random number generator to pick. So I wrapped 6 books, and I think I'm going to pick 3 of them. I have my random number generator here, so I'm going to generate, and I got 1. So let me grab book 1. So this is my book 1. I'm going to open it with you guys. I don't even remember like what book I picked. Oh, okay. So this is called Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. So my best friend picked this out for me for my birthday. I'm pretty sure this is a collection of short stories. And I think it's supposed to be a little bit creepy. So I feel like this is pretty out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad that she picked this because I know she really, really loves this book, and I feel like it'll be good for me to like learn and read it and see why she loves it. Next, I got book 5, if you could see. So here is book 5. Sorry, they're like kind of ugly, but I just used the only paint pens I had. So book 5, let's open this up. Ooh, okay. Book 5 is Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. So I believe this is part of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I think this is actually the 3rd book in this trilogy. Clearly I didn't know that. I own the 1st and the 3rd one and not the 2nd one, so I'm going to like keep this as a placeholder and read Shadow and Bone because this is the 3rd book in the trilogy. I have read this author before. I think she wrote Six of Crows, and I loved that. My best friend also recommended that one to me, so I'm excited to read this, and we'll see how I like it, but I'm gonna use it as a placeholder for Shadow and Bone. The 3rd book that I'm unboxing is book 6. Okay, so there's only 3 left out there. Oh, and they're all 2, 3, and 4 like simultaneously. It's kind of funny. Okay, so book 6. Let me open this. Okay, I picked Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I have had this for years now. I bought this because it was book of the year at Target, and I think this has to do with like a parent passing away and like the 2 estranged siblings kind of working together to like find something out about the parents, I think is like the general gist of this one. So this is the 3rd book I'm going to read. I started Shadow and Bone, which is the 1st book that I'm reading this blind date with a book thing. I do have to say I am loving this book so far. I'm on chapter 9, so about 135 pages in, and I feel like when I read the 1st chapter, I honestly didn't know what this was about. And when I read the 1st chapter, I was concerned because I feel like there wasn't a lot of explanation as to like what was going on, or like why certain things were the way they were, or like just reasoning behind it. And I was like, oh no, is this going to be one of those things that never gets explained? There was a lot of words and terms that were new to me, but it picked up really quickly, and I should have known because I really liked Six of Crows, but the author does a good job of making you understand all of the terminology really quickly. So for example, they'll say like, they originally mentioned like corporalnix and etheralky and blah blah blah, and I was like, what the flying F is that, right? And they just mention it, but she does such a good job of weaving the story into kind of like info dumping or info dropping, I would rather say, so that I feel like I'm like learning a new language as I read it because I'm understanding the magic system and the world and all of that as I keep going through it. So I really like that. I also really like the plot of this. I like that, you know, if it's a girl who Loki's in love with her best friend, and then, you know, he's like the hot shot and she's kind of like this mousy nobody type situation, and then she gets the powers, and then they're, I mean, at this point they're pretty separate. And I also really like that they were supposed to be like childhood best friends, but Loki talks about in the beginning how they haven't really bonded in a while, and she's in love with him, but he, you know, doesn't really say these things back to her. I don't know, I really like that. I something about it is so interesting to me. I feel like it's a different take on like being in love with your best friend from childhood, and stuff like that. So I'm really liking it. And the Darkling, am I sensing something's gonna happen there? Is that what is going to happen in this book? Because if that is what's gonna happen, I think I love that. The only qualm I have so far is that I hate that this thing's name is the Darkling. The Darkling sounds like some sort of animal something something. I don't like that that's what they, like, he couldn't be the Dark One or something like that, you know. I don't know. But yeah, those are my thoughts so far. I really like it. I just got to the part where she has been taken to the palace, and she meets Genya, who I also really like that character. And she's like kind of assimilating into society, like posh Grisha society, I should say. And now she just went to the woods for the training with Baghra, however you say it. So that's the part that I'm at now. Really liking it so far. I'm glad that I blind dated this one, because A, I didn't know anything going into it, but B, I'm really, really liking it. And I know that this has a cult following, but I'm happy that I'm like reading it and like seeing what all the hype is about. So going so well so far, and then I will give you guys an update maybe when I have something else to say. Hi, I'm just going to give my update here, awkwardly standing in this pocket of light that there is. So I finished Shadow and Bone last night, and it was so good, like so okay, I know you really can't see me. It was so unexpectedly good, in my opinion. Like, I did not know why I haven't read this fantasy series in all of this time. I really, really liked it. I liked the ending too. I thought it was going to be more of like her liking Mal and then realizing like the Darkling is actually a good guy, but then that's not how it went. Like, I liked how original the storyline was, because it was a lot different. The story did not go the way that I thought it was going to, especially with all the twists towards like the last third of the book. I thought were really interesting, and I really liked it. I think the only thing that kind of I thought was not a downside, but like one perhaps issue that I had with it was just the fact that, like, I feel like some of the romance stuff came out of nowhere. I feel like the Darkling and her developed something kind of randomly. There was no tension, no build up, no steam, and then all of a sudden he just like kissed her, which I guess was the point, but then also not, because I feel like there's more going on there. So that was number one. Number two, even Mal, like, suddenly realizing his feelings, like, where did those letters go? Did the Darkling steal them? Did Genya steal them? I don't know what happened there, so I feel like that's a bit up in the air. And then Mal's feelings changed also was crazy to me, because he really just went after her because he felt like he was responsible for her, not any other reason. So I feel like those things didn't make a lot of sense, but I'm super excited to see where books 2 and 3 go, and like where the plot of this whole trilogy will end. I also think something that's like up in the air and a little confusing is why Baghra, I think that's her name, Baghra, like betrayed her own son. Like, that plot point also came out of nowhere, because why was she so secretive up until that point? We don't know. So yeah, this standing positioning is getting a little uncomfortable for me, so I'm just gonna end this clip here. But I did just finish Shadow and Bone, and I really liked it, so much so that I already ordered the second book, which should be coming really soon. And then once I read that, then I can read the one that we originally unboxed, unwrapped for this video. So yeah, really like that. And then now I'm gonna pick which one of those I'm gonna read. So while I wait for Shadow and Bone number 2 to come, I think I'm gonna read Her Body and other parties. So I'm gonna start on this, and then once I finish it, I'll let you know what I think. I just finished the first story in Her Body and Other Parties, which is called The Husband Stitch, and I surprisingly really liked it. I think I didn't quite understand it at first because I am not very good with understanding metaphors and things like that when they're really well written. I just think because I don't read a lot of books like that. So I'm happy to read this because I feel like it's challenging my literary and reading comprehension and everything like that. But I liked this first story so far. Basically, it follows a woman, and I think this short story has a lot to do with like domestic roles in society. So basically it follows this woman who lives a like seemingly very normal domestic heterosexual relationship infused life. She meets this guy when she's a teenager, they get married, they have children. But all this time, or they have a child, but throughout all this time she wears like this green ribbon around her neck, and the only thing that she asks of her husband is to basically not undo the ribbon. He always has this fascination with her ribbon because she won't let him remove it, and anytime he asks her, she's like, I'm not going to tell you, but that's just my personal boundary. Like, that's the one thing I ask of you, is not to untie the ribbon. And then eventually at the end of the story, he asks her again to untie her ribbon, and then so much has happened in their life, so she just lets him untie it, and then her head falls off, and that's the end of that story. So I didn't think I understood it. I looked it up. I think it basically just means that it's like a slow creeping, it's not like a jump scare type of creepy horror. He just has been wearing her down years after years after year for years and years and years, and then he lets her, or she lets him, undo the ribbon and her head falls off, and it's basically the loss of her like bodily autonomy, the boundaries that she put in place years ago that were continuously pushed, and then eventually to the point where he wears her down to the point where she lets him do it, and then it's like the loss of her head, and like she can still see and feel everything around her, but it's like her sense of self is gone basically. So yeah, that's that first story. Kind of deep, kind of dark, but I think that's the theme of the whole book. I liked it. I thought it was, I like the length of them. I like that they're so short and fast-paced, and I like the writing style. I'm intrigued to be challenged by this and hopefully understand a bit more of the stories without looking them up. So that's the first short story. The next one that is up is Inventory, which I don't know anything about any of these, so this should be good. Okay, location switch. I just finished the second short story, which is called Inventory. And this basically just follows this unnamed girl who is going through basically her body count list, and then she just describes like brief descriptions of each of them, and it talks about like the men she's been with, the women she's been with, and all the while going over, I think while she's going through this, she uses it to tell the story of like whatever world she and like land and time she's living in. There's an epidemic that's like taking over, very similar to the pandemic, where it's like killing people, so she basically isolates herself, and then it's just like a list of her paramours, if you will. I don't really know how I felt about this one. I don't know what the point was about this one, but I did finish it. And then the next one is called Mothers, so we'll see what we think about this. I did just finish Mothers for an update. This is definitely my least favorite of this whole bunch. It essentially follows this woman who is in this relationship with this other woman named Bad. Her name is Bad. And she basically, like, the story starts and she says that Bad has given birth to their baby. And then Bad just leaves, and then the main character is left with the baby to raise them and take care of them. And then as you go through the story, I think you basically just find out that like their relationship was a bit abusive, and like you're putting all those pieces together. So essentially the metaphor of the story is that there is probably no baby, and the baby is just like a trauma conjuring response from the main character due to the abusive relationship that she was in with Bad. It's like what's left after Bad leaves. I don't know, this one was a bit too out there for me, and I didn't think that there was anything going on there with this one. I wasn't a fan. I didn't really like it. Next I have Especially Heinous, which I guess is kind of based off of Law and Order SVU. I think it might be based off of an episode because it says on the back here, a phantasmagoric reimagining of one of television's most popular shows, which I think Law and Order SVU fits the bill. So I wonder what this is going to be about. I guess I'll read it and let you guys know. Okay, as I'm editing this, I can see that I never finished parts of my updates for Her Body and Other Stories. So I did end up finishing the book, but the Law and Order short story I really did not like, I think. I very much enjoyed the first short story, and then a little, like, I kind of liked the second one, and then after that, it really just lost me. I think some of them got a little bit too abstract for my liking. It's just not my taste, but still, I was happy to read it nonetheless to kind of broaden my horizons if I could. But I just realized that I never finished wrapping up my thoughts on the short story. So I think it was really good. It's definitely out there, and I wouldn't say this is the first thing that I would recommend if you're trying to get into more of like a gothic horror type of genre. But I'm happy that I read it. I feel like had my best friend not got it for me, I wouldn't have. So in that way, I'm glad. And we talked about it. And I feel like the Husband Stitch short story, like that one, I'll always remember. And I know that was her favorite as well. Um, but overall, I think it was a bit too much for me, but I could see the appeal for some other people. And that was, my conclusion on Her Body and Other Stories. Hi, you guys. I know that the quality of this is super different. I'm finishing this on my laptop, so please ignore that. But I wanted to give the update on the last book that I was supposed to read for this series. And I regret, I feel like, to say that I DNF'd Black Cake. I don't know why. That was like, I tried to get into it three separate times, and it wasn't connecting for me. I think something about the I read up to 30% of the book, and it just for some reason wasn't connecting with me. I feel like when if I'm not reading one of my preferred genres that are kind of like no brain power, if it's going to be something like fiction, I feel like it really needs to hook me, and I just didn't feel like the concept really hooked me very much. I didn't think that it was really original, nor did I feel very connected to the characters. Essentially, for Black Cake, it follows two siblings whose mom recently passed away, and the siblings were a little estranged. And so, in the mother's will, she leaves them kind of like a video message, like a video diary, with the recipe to her infamous black cake everyone covets and things like that. But then I don't know, I felt like there was so much animosity between the two siblings, and the video diary thing I feel like is done and old, and then the recipe thing, I don't know, I wasn't able to connect with it for some reason, and so I decided to DNF it because I feel like there's no point in forcing myself to read books that I don't really like. And so it was a blind date. Sometimes these things happen and you don't hit it off, but that's okay. But I did want to kind of give the update and conclusion on the final book in this video. So I would say it was a pretty successful blind date series overall, speed dating series overall. I had a really good time. I feel like this was a good way to really make it through some of the books that I had on my TBR. I definitely think I'll do this again. Maybe next time I'll have my best friend or my fiance or my mom like pick the books and wrap them, so I really have no idea any of the books that I've wrapped or something like that, just to kind of go into it more blind. But like I said, I feel like it's pretty successful. Even if you don't like a book, I feel like it was helpful for me because now I can like clear that from my shelf. I can give it to somebody that might like it a lot more than I did, and everything like that. So that is the conclusion of my blind date with the book for this video. Let me know if you guys liked this, if you would want to see me do something like this again, and kind of what you thought, or if you've read any of these books, what you think. Should I be giving Black Cake another try? And anything that runs the gamut of that discussion. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video.